Hello, I'm Emma of Granola Gear, and I'm so excited to be chatting with you again today about what I have been working on. It's beautiful outside today. It's sunny. It's almost 50 degrees. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm smart enough to know that this is fake spring, but I'm happy to experience it while we have this little warm break before we get our last cold snap. I know it's coming. You can't get me weather. I understand what's happening. Um, so I know I have a little bit left of cold weather knits, but we're definitely getting close to the springtime. We'll see how it all pans out in the end. So because of that, today I am wearing the Sill Slipover by Petite Knit. We don't need a full sweater. This is maybe even pushing it, at least while I'm inside. It's still a little chilly feeling outside. This is knit in Cascade 220 that I over dyed with Rit Dye in the color Wine. I talked about this in the last episode. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It fits very nicely, I'd say. I'm still kind of figuring out what sort of shirt to wear under it. That's the one thing I have a hard time with some slipovers. If it's like a turtleneck, I actually find that to be better, like my Urus slipover, because I don't have to worry about what's going on at the collar because it's just the turtleneck. Because this, like, my shirt pokes out a little bit, which is okay, I guess. I'm just not sure if it's my favorite thing. I don't know. But I like it. It's very cute. And yeah, that is it for this guy. So I don't have much in the way of finished objects today. The one thing I will show you is my first teeny tiny, itsy bitsy, teeny weeny skein of hand spun yarn that I made on my drop spindle. I haven't talked about this in a while because I just was more interested in knitting things, but I felt like picking up my drop spindle this weekend and I did just a teeny little bit. I have one big braid of white fiber, like wool fiber. I don't know what kind specifically. It didn't come with a label. That I started a little while ago, and this is not obviously all of it. I have quite a bit. I just decided because this was my first teeny tiny little bit and I had a decent amount on the spindle that I'd just ply it up and see what it looked like just for fun. And like I kind of got over the hump of my first little bit. So maybe I'll start again and see what we can make this look like. So look at that. It's so pretty. It's all like staying twisted because I had it twisted in the cake. It's not perfect, obviously. It's literally my first spin ever. I'm pretty happy with it though. It's very cool to look at. I just plied it together. What did I do? I caked it up on my yarn caker and then I held the inside and the outside of that together and I applied it on my spindle. I'm sure there's better ways to do that. I don't know everything. I actually find it's like almost difficult to find information on YouTube about like drop spindles. I feel like there's lots about spinning on a wheel, and there is some about drop spindles. There definitely is, but there isn't like the vast quantity that there are for some areas. There's like a couple people who have that niche, and it's not super intense. I think there may be a lot of people that primarily knit and then also talk about spinning. But there aren't a lot of people just out there making lots of big videos about drop spindles. So I may be wrong. I know, like, I can't think of her name, Jillian Eve. She does lots of videos about spinning, and I've watched a handful of hers. Uh, it's like, I don't know, it's sometimes it's hard to find. I'm sure everyone gets this with watching knitting tutorials for different things. Different people appeal to different people because of what their learning style is and who they best understand. And there just aren't as many options for spindles specifically, I'd say, based on what I've seen. Some of the videos are really, really old or just, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. I think I did an okay job. I don't have any super knobby parts from it being like really over twisted, I think. There's some sections in where I applied it that like I definitely didn't twist it enough. Like, I don't know if you can see right there, that one, but it was a fun little experiment. I'm sure I'll pick it back up. I have a little bit of fiber that I've shown you, but it's just kind of fun. I wanted to like have my first little skein and then I don't ever have to use this, but it's not like a huge quantity of fiber. I could still use the rest of it just to keep and to have. And yeah, I set it in water and all that, but was just fun. Now I have this little mini skein. I guess we can use it as a decoration. It can live somewhere. I'm trying to like make this shelf cuter and I'm like not doing a good job. I'm not really like one of those people who can intentionally curate. I just find things that I like and I put them on the shelf. And that's what this is. So, yeah. So let's get into actual knits and works in progress. All the same things as last week, nothing new, but we have made some progress. The first thing I'll get into is something that I don't remember if I've made any progress since last week. If I have, it's not anything significant. It's the Journeyman Jumper by Knitwits and Yarns. I've knit most of this back panel now, but I'm not quite done with it. It's on a cord, so it's kind of hard to show. I don't remember if I had knit that section or not. Probably hadn't yet because I went to my knitting group that night and I knit on it for a while. By Knitwits and Yarns, it's a worsted weight pattern. I'm knitting it in Hobie Friends wool in the color dark denim. I generally like how this is turning out. I'm knitting it in the round instead of in panels. The pattern is supposed to be in panels. I'm not knitting it in panels. I'm just, wow, it just got really dark in here. I hope you can still see this. Oh well, I guess. Let me hold on and turn on some lights just in case it looks really dark for you. Okay, the sun came back, but now we have the lights on for some security just in case it dips behind a cloud again. But yeah, I talked about this quite a bit in the last episode, just because I kind of have a lot of thoughts and feelings. I don't know. It's been a decent pattern so far. I'm a little like, I have to go through and read the pattern and like figure out what's going on with this back panel because I'm like not done with, I'm not at the right length for it yet, but I only have like 2 inches left until it's the same length as this front panel. I guess it's the front panel is kind of staggered, so it's probably a little bit more on the inside, but I just want to make sure I'm not knitting the back panel like totally way too long. So I need to do that, and I just haven't gotten into it yet. This is in on 4.5 millimeter needles. In my last episode, for some reason, I just got the needle numbers mixed up in my head and how I was speaking. I had them all on the screen correctly, but as I was editing it, I was like, what am I saying? Those are totally wrong. Not all of them, but just some of them. Yeah, not a significant amount of progress on that one. But once I get to the sleeves, I'm pretty sure it'll crank out pretty quickly. So that is that. We'll move on from that pretty quickly today. Next I have, things are falling. The Champagne Pullover by Sari Nordland. I finished the second sleeve of this guy. This is knit on 3.5 millimeter needles. I know that I said that wrong in the last one. It's knit in DK weight yarn, and this is the Jagerspun Mainline 3/8, which I thrifted on a cone a while ago. It's the color Daffodil Yellow, and like I've said, I do not like the color yellow, so when I am done knitting this, I'm going to over dye it and dye Scarlet because I just don't like yellow. I don't like all yellow. I like yellow as like a contrast color, like yellow in combination with things. I love a good like yellow, pink, green combo that's very springy. I love that. I just don't like yellow on its own. I finished the second sleeve. I'm working on the body again. And this looks so small. It's definitely going to block out wider because of the cables and the lace. And it's on a bit of a smaller cord, not super small, but it definitely feels like it is small. But I think it'll be fine. I'm going to hold it out. It'll be fine once I block it out. Once we block out the width. Of course, I just pulled all of the freaking stitches off of this needle because I have no thoughts apparently. Emma, what was I thinking? I thought that and then I was like, nah, I'm going to do it anyways. And I lost my stitch marker. I'll find it later. Oh, here it is. There it is. Yeah, I really like this pattern. I was talking a lot in the last episode about how a lot of Sari Nordland's patterns are very feminine, but I think that this one gives a good balance because it's very drop-shouldered, at least in her construction. It's pretty boxy looking, which I actually have knit I knit the Colette Tee by Sari Nordland last spring, and that one looks really boxy in the pictures, and then mine was really not. I have some concern that this is also going to turn out that way. I don't really know why. Like, I'm knitting this correct size, and I think my gauge is all right. I don't know. But I also feel like these cables that run over all of the lace give it a lot more structure. Not structure, but I guess it's a more of a structured look than if it was just really filigreed. It's the filigreed overlaid with um, the very consistent structured cables that I think balance it out a little bit. The sleeves look pretty good. I managed to do most of them on a circular cable, like on just my circular needles. I just, knitting cables and lace on magic loop was just not going to happen, and I don't have any DPNs. And I couldn't, it would have been hard to like do them this way so that all the lace was on one side of the magic loop, because this stockinette panel gets obviously smaller and smaller. So yeah, I managed to get it done on mostly circulars. So it's probably a little, my gauge is probably a little bit blown up towards the end, but I'm not super worried about the sleeves. But yeah, she's cute so far. I'm pretty happy with it. It's fun. I'm obviously can't really memorize this whole charted pattern, but at the beginning of every row, I just look at the chart, and things like this, I just have to remember where I do the the decreases and the yarn overs in that filigreed section, and where I'm doing the cables. And other than that, it's not super difficult. I don't need a cable needle or anything. But yeah, that is that for this week. Moving on, I don't know what I just did with my hands. We've got the Tulip Loop Vest by Other Loops. And last week I hadn't quite finished the back panel, and I did finish the back panel. And I did the front left shoulder. I need to do the front right shoulder. I was talking a lot about charts in the last video and how Other Loops doesn't really seem to do charts. She just writes out where you do the cables, like knit to blah 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 and then C2. But I think really the reason for that is a lot of her increases and decreases are very far inset into the pattern. Like as you can see here, the increases for the neckline are all the way in here on the other side of this cable. Normally they'd be on this side of the cable in some capacity, like closer to the neckline after only 2 or 3 stitches, so it's a lot easier to show that. But with it in here, I can't imagine that it would be difficult to chart for that. And then the increases for the sleeve here are in this purl section. Similarly, this would be a little easier to chart because it's on the outside of this cable, but with it on the inside, and I have seen that in her other patterns. She tends to do the increases on the inside, and it gives you this really cool look in this ribbing. It's very non-traditional. It's why her patterns look the way that they do. It just means that there's no chart. That being said, she could insert a chart just of each individual cable. Instead of saying C2, you say and knit chart 1 in this section. And it's not a big deal. It's just my preference. I like that visual. I like to be able to keep track. Like I will usually have the PDF up on my computer, and I'll insert like a red line, and then I'll move that red line up every row so that I know where I am in the chart. Just a visual. It keeps me on track. With this, I put a stitch marker on the last purl bump behind where the cable row was, so that I know how many rows it's been since my last cable, and that's how I keep track. It just requires a little more counting. What else did I have to say about this? Oh, so there's no edging on this sleeve, the sleeve holes for this pattern, which is fine. I have knit, when I knit the twist loop top, which is a tank top, I think it was a similar edge, but then I also had to do the I-cord, and it actually really hurt my hands. And I was like, it's kind of silly because you can't even tell. Like you've got this wide rim on the edge that if left alone, it would have looked exactly the same as it did with the I-cord, because the I-cord isn't defined enough against just more stockinette. So that's fine. And because of that, you slip, when you're starting a row, you slip the stitch instead of knitting it. It gives it a nicer edge along here. But you're doing the same thing, the same slipping the stitch on the inside edge for the neckline. And the neckline does have edging. This is going to be a V-neck of ribbing. And what I don't love about that is it gives these really big stitches on the edge, which I don't feel are super necessary for a pattern that's going to have a picked up edge. we'll see how it looks. Once the edging is on, I just feel like it makes the holes bigger right before that edge there. And I don't know how I'm sure it'll look fine in the end. It's just not my favorite technique. And once you've started something, you may as well just keep going with it. I'm not going to change now. It's just not my favorite way. It does make it very defined, and it will probably be easier to pick up the stitches. I just don't know if it's going to look like the cleanest. So we will see. And you see all these little fuzzy bits on the inside, these little strings. It's because I forgot to mention that the yarn I'm using is an Unraveled sweater yarn. This is an Aran weight pattern knit on 4.5 millimeter needles. This yarn is 60% merino, 15% Angora, 15% cashmere, and 10% nylon. I unraveled it from a sweater. I do have a picture of the sweater somewhere if I want to go find that when I'm editing this video. But sometimes a lot of these sweaters and these sweater yarns, I also meant to talk about this last week, when you unravel them, you'll find that even though they have multiple plies, a lot of those plies don't have much twist altogether. You might be able to see it there. They're like a little bit separated. I don't know exactly why this is. It may be that they just don't need to have as much twist when they're commercially knitting it. It may be that it gives it a better look, makes things look more defined because you don't have any distraction of the twist in the yarn. Everything's very straight looking. I don't know, maybe they just feed the multiple plies in and it knits it up and they don't twist it beforehand at all. But when you frog it, it does tend to, in the individual strands I've seen, will make it so that in places of high wear or whatever, you may get a couple of those plies break in the yarn, one or two, and it's not held together with as much twist. So when I frog it, they kind of pull apart. And what I usually do with this, because there's quite a few plies, so it doesn't matter too much, is I just leave that like an inch or two of that broken ply out, keep knitting, and then like again here, pick back up the other end of that broken ply once I've gotten through another inch, or once there's like an inch or two left of that loose bit on the other side. And then I'll just weave these in. You can't tell on the other side at all. It just leaves some more ends on this side, but I don't want to break the yarn every single time. There's like, see here, there's just a single ply that broke. That's just how I deal with that. I don't think it's a big deal. If it gets down to like, if it's like a bunch of plies broke and I've only got one or two left holding the yarn together and they're pretty thin plies like this, I will break the yarn and start a new strand so that we don't have like a super weak section in the fabric. But yeah, no issues so far. I really like this color. It's super pretty. I'm holding this double like I said. Do I have anything else to say about this? Nope, that's it. I'll probably work on the second shoulder later today. I think that's where I'm going to be at in my rotation. And then the last project that I'm working on right now is the Dagmar jacket. I don't remember exactly where I was last time, but I think I was working on the shoulders. And what actually happened here was and this is the Dagmar jacket by Petite Knit, worsted Aran weight yarn. Sorry if I keep bumping the mic. This is Drops Alaska in the color dark gray, 100% wool, 4.5 millimeter needles. Yeah. So I thought I had finished both of these front shoulder panels, and then I realized, because I did the same number of these like chart repeats as I did on the back, and I did both sides, and then I lay it down flat, and I was like, shoot, this front panel does not line up at the same length with this back panel. It was like pulling it forward like this. I was like, I have to do one more repeat, don't I? That's what I'm supposed to do, because I hadn't really measured it. I was just assuming that it would be the same number of repeats. So I just went back in, and this morning I finally finished both front sections a couple minutes ago. Not a couple minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, an hour ago, something like that. So now it's ready to join for the body. I'll probably finish my skein, maybe knit one more skein in the body, and then I'll switch to working on one of the sleeves. The one thing about cardigans like this is I can't do the neckline or anything until I've finished the whole body. So after I do the sleeves, I will just have to finish the body, because I like to start the body, knit the neckline, knit the sleeves, and then finish the body like I have with my champagne pullover. I feel like that makes me feel more motivated to finish the body, because the body This, I know people talk about Sleeve Island. I don't get Sleeve Island. I love Sleeve Island. I love sleeves. I think they knit up really fast. I think they're really fun. It's small. You get their progress really quickly. I don't like the body because it feels like it takes forever. But if I knit the sleeves and the neckline, I'm like, oh my gosh, it basically looks done. Now I just have to finish the body. So the whole second half, which is the body, doesn't feel like it takes as long. But with cardigans like this, you've got to wait to get to that part. I just will get the sleeves, but that'll still make a dent psychologically. I really like how this is looking. I think it's really pretty. I think because of the heatheredness of this dark color, you can still see the cables really well. You can't really see these ones, which are just like a 1x1 cross. I didn't even realize in Petite Knit's photos that these are a 1x1 cross, so I'm not really worried about that. I love a good honeycomb. It's so pretty. It's pretty easy too, I think, especially when you're doing it without a cable needle. You just pop them on, pop them off, and pop them back on, and it's pretty simple. I know in the sleeves this will be even nicer to knit because you're only cabling once. It's like every fourth row. So once I'm doing it in the sleeves, there'll be 3 rows of knitting. Right now it's like a purl row, a knit row, a purl row, and then a cable. So it's more purling. But yeah, love how it's turning out. It feels really nice. Sometimes this yarn is rough on my hands, but not always. Like this is just a good dense rustic yarn. I don't feel like it's super toothy and ouchy like something like the Shetland, Jameson's of Shetland Spindrift is. Like that's really prickly. This isn't super prickly. I don't want it like really against my skin, but that's also not the point of a garment like this. So that is that. The one thing I have for an acquisition isn't really yarn. I thrifted this sweater. This is a Shetland wool sweater. It's so funny. Someone wrote 100% wool on the tag for some reason, even though it says 100% wool on the tag. It's Laura Allen, 100% Shetland wool. Yeah, vintage sweater. I picked it up and it looks like it's in pretty good condition. If you remember, I unraveled a Shetland wool sweater at the beginning of the season that I haven't gotten to yet. It's just in stash. That had some stains on it. It was a vintage Brooks Brothers sweater. This one, once I washed it, I found that it did have holes in that armpit. And I know there was one somewhere else. I might not be able to find it right now. I know there's at least one more, but I'm just gonna, like, the sleeve edge is a little messed up. So I may frog this. We will see. I'll probably keep it like this until I've decided, because I may knit this in a colorwork sweater probably next year with the Shetland wool. Who am I kidding? Definitely next year, depending on whatever I feel like. But this is a really pretty dark purple. It's like that blue got all these different little colors in it that you can see sort of as a halo. I don't know what style of spinning it is that would do that, but it's really pretty and I like it a lot. Maybe I'll fix it. We'll see. You know, kind of up in the air. We figure these things out as we go. But that is all for knitting today. If you enjoyed this, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. You can find me on Instagram at granola.gear. I talk a lot about what I'm working on as I'm working on it on my stories and that kind of thing. If you're interested in that, I'm going to chat for a minute about what I've been reading. But other than that, that is all my knitting. So if that's all you care about, I hope you have a great day. Happy knitting. For what I've been reading lately, I just finished a book that was the third in a series that I've really enjoyed. And the book is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. Like I said, this is a third in a series. I can't remember the first one's name is, but I'll also put that on the screen so you can find it. If you're someone who really enjoyed stories of, like, I'm trying to think of the best description, fairies when you're a kid, this is like kind of the adult version of that. It's not like fairies in the Tinkerbell sense, but more in the like traditional folklore sense of like various countries and the kind of stories of fairies that are sort of scary and a little dark, but you still have the cute little ones that do different little things for you, but overall they're a little freaky and whatever. It's about a lady who is a professor and she researches different things, and this is the human world, but in which people know that fairies are real and they study them and whatever. But she's a professor and she looks into all these things, and her she's involved with another fairy who's whatever. I don't want to give away the first book, but this is the third book. She's in a different land. She's discovering new things. She's solving problems. It's kind of this whole thing where, like, a bad thing happens in the fairy world, and her way of fixing it is she goes and reads all of these different tales of the past and finds one that's similar, and then she uses that to solve the problem in her situation because of how they all come together. I don't know, it's just really well written, very beautiful, very ethereal, I'd say. Kind of academic, kind of dark academia. It's just, I really enjoyed it. It's not too cutesy. It's more like you feel a little historical fiction, a little academia, but also with that fun fantasy vibe. Very much enjoyed it. I'd say it was probably a 4-star for me. Yes, this was the third book. It just came out, and I highly recommend the series if that's something that you ever enjoyed reading. It was a fun book for me. They're not super long, but I feel like they pack a good punch. But yeah, that's what I've been reading on lately. I haven't been reading as vast quantities so far this year. I lowered my reading goal significantly for this year just because I needed to chill a little bit, but that's okay. We go through different phases in life, and this is the one I'm in. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, same thing goes for the people just here for knitting. I really appreciate a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you've been working on, what you've been reading lately. I love to hear what you guys are doing. I think it's very fun. I love to read everyone's comments and respond to them all. I check every single day. But I hope you have a great day and happy knitting.